Welcome to Nuggets of Gold, and no, the title of this video is not just clickbait. This is my final day in this office. I found out last Friday that our company is having a struggle and a strain financially. And so on this Good Friday, 1 week after last Good Friday, this is my final day. They had to cut a number of staff from our headquarters here at this great company that I've been working for, and the company has been extremely gracious and handled the dismissal or the layoff as politely and respectfully as possible. But yeah, it's kind of a little bit back to the drawing board for me over the last week. I've had some different thoughts, had some different ideas, prayed a lot of prayers, as you can imagine. And what I want to do with this time today is share 3 things I needed to do in order to survive over this last week. Being surprised by a layoff. And I should say as well, the company has offered a role to go back to being an Amazon delivery driver. So just my role as on the management team here at our headquarters is being removed. But there is a fallback job, not the same kind of salary, but there is a little bit of a fallback. So we'll see what happens. But over the course of the last 7 days, you can imagine some fear, some anxiety, some confusion, some sadness, a little bit of anger popping up, like I've done a good job. Why is this happening? And so I just want to share with you 3 things that I needed to do, that I needed to cling to in order to keep my head above water, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And all 3 of them can be drawn to verses in the book of Galatians. So here's the first one. The first thing that I needed to do when I went through this is lean on others. Within 15 minutes of finding out, my boss came, sat down in my office. We had a conversation. He handed me the letter of layoff. And within 15 minutes after that, I sent a text message to 7 people. And it wasn't a text message begging for jobs or asking them to look for jobs. It was a text message saying, here's what happened. Please be praying for my heart and for when I share this news with my wife and for the journey ahead. Here's what Galatians 6:2 says. It says, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. Bear one another's burdens. I needed to race humbly and ask others to be in prayer, carrying this burden of this surprise news with me. I would be a fool to try to muscle through the roller coaster of emotions, the roller coaster of frustrations. And so I ran to other people and asked them to bear this burden with me. And of course they did. They started sending messages back and sending phone calls back and even sending ideas back. So first thing I needed to do was lean on others. The second thing I needed to do is I needed to remember this good news. My biggest problems are already solved. The biggest problems I will ever face in my life are nothing to do with earthly circumstances. The biggest problems I will ever face is the sin that is inside me that tries to drive me away from God and towards hell if I indulge in that sin. My biggest problems are sin, Satan, and death. And so as I'm going through this roller coaster of feelings and thoughts, I need to remind myself actively. I need to preach to myself actively. Thomas, you do have a temporary problem. You have an earthly problem. You lost your job. What's next? That's a legitimate problem. But I needed to remind myself, but your biggest problems are already solved. Galatians 4, verses 4 and 5 promise me this. When the right time had come, God sent forth his Son, born of woman, born under the law, to redeem those who were under the law, so that we might receive adoption as sons. I am reminded here in Galatians 4 and 5 that my biggest problems are solved. My estrangement from God, my separation from God because of my sins has been reversed because Jesus came to earth, born of a woman, and walked under God's law perfectly. He obeyed perfectly, and then he died for me so that I could be adopted into God's family forever. So that whether I am jobless or homeless or familyless or friendless, my biggest problems are already solved. I need to preach myself that, and I have been a lot this week. Lastly, the last thing, is that the right one? Nope, we already saw that one. The last thing I needed is to tell myself this. I needed to grab a hold of Thomas, don't get stuck. Don't get stuck here. Don't let discouragement freeze you from moving forward. Thomas, you've got to keep going. You've got to look for jobs. You've got to love your family. You've got to push forward. And Galatians 6:9 gives us a promise about earnestly seeking and working and doing the right thing for the right reasons. Galatians 6:9 says, let us not grow weary of doing good. Don't grow weary of doing good, because in due season we will reap if we do not give up. So there's been moments of discouragement. There's been hours of discouragement here in the last week, but this verse reminds me, continue on doing good. Honor the Lord, honor others. Don't get stuck in discouragement. Even if you feel it, Thomas, don't get stuck. Don't let it collapse on you, crush you. You've got to keep moving, keep seeking what is God's next door for me. So those are 3 things that I've been trying to practice. I give them to you on this Easter weekend as things to fight against your discouragements and the surprises in your life that may pop up that are negative. Have a great Easter. If you're seeing this after Easter, awesome. Thanks for joining us. And hey, maybe pray for me. Can't wait to find out what God has next for me. We will see you next time from a different location.